of course, there you go. So I'm planning as well some time for questions for Q&A. So for those who are not familiar with Zoom, I assume in these strange times of COVID-19, I think that everyone knows these kind of solutions. But anyway, you will see that there is also a Q&A option. And so if you have any questions whatsoever, yeah, I see the first one already. Smile, Bart. Yeah, I can smile. It's just the start of the session, right? Um, so if you have any questions whatsoever, yes, I will try to answer them after the session if you stay online, and otherwise, you know how to find me in any kind of way, because there's only one Bart Jungens in the world. I will contact you, or you can contact me. And I can help you with any HPE related questions, of course. Now you can tell maybe, yeah, but StorMagic SvSan is not an HPE product. Well, I agree, but let's take a look at what it is and why I am organizing this webinar is because I see a good match with needs that we see in the market, but also it becomes more interesting for you as an HPE partner. I assume that most of you are HPE partners, and otherwise we can help you with this. But the thing is that it is part since a few weeks with the HP Complete program. And don't worry, I'm going to tell you a little bit more what are the advantages for you and your customers of the HP Complete program. But before I'm going to do that, let's take a quick deep dive in what is StorMagic and why it is interesting. Because it's a company that exists already for many years, more than 8 years already. It's a company worldwide, locations a little bit everywhere around the world. For Europe, it's in the UK and also some other offices in Europe as well to support us. And if we take a look at the solution SvSan, because they also have other products, but why SvSan looks interesting to me is that it's some kind of a virtual SAN. It's software-defined storage, and there are plenty of software-defined storage solutions on the market. But specifically to this one, I see a good match for customers who are using Store Virtual. And you know, Store Virtual, sometimes I refer still to the old name, which was Left Hand. Okay, and you had those Left Hand Store Virtual physical and virtual appliances, so the VSAs. And since I see, at least here in Belgium and in Holland and Germany, in Europe where we live, I see a lot of these deployments of that solution since the product is end of life last year, 2019. Yeah, we were looking for some other solutions. And there was not really a one-on-one comparison, well, until now with StorMagic. And so I took a deep dive. I downloaded the software. I tried it out. That's what I'm going to show you in my home lab. And most of you, they know my little home lab in my garage, where I am running already Left Hand, by the way, for more than 11 years now without any downtime. Well, now I started the same challenge with StorMagic. Now, if you take a quick look about where is it used, well, I'm not going to give you a complete list with all the customers where it's running. Yes, there are already some installations in Belgium as well, but there was one that is intriguing, is for instance Home Depot. Well, you know, Home Depot, it's like the Gamma and Hugo here in Belgium. But Home Depot has more than 3,000 locations in the US. Um, and what they do is similar to what you can do with the VSA. They did it, by the way, with the VSA in the past from Left Hand. And so now with StorMagic, they have 2 servers with local storage. They put their StorMagic SvSan software on top of it, and it becomes a high available storage network. By the way, iSCSI based. So the comparison continues. So it's an iSCSI based solution, 2 servers, local storage, it becomes an iSCSI target, and it's high available. So if one server goes down, um, the data and of course your VMs and your application stays online. Cool, right? Now they have 3,000 locations to manage, and this is how we're going to see it as well, how easy it is to manage. So if you have a customer with just one or two or five or 3,000, um, it's easy to manage, it's easy to deploy. um, it's you'll see in the demo. If you don't see it in the presentation, you'll see it in the demo because that's the most interesting part of the session. Now, if we take a look really quickly, you know how it goes. Every company has these kind of presentations. So what are the customer pain points today? Well, you will recognize over provisioning. Yeah, that's why you are doing virtualization, right? With VMware, Hyper-V, Linux KVM, whatsoever. Budget constraints, everyone. Limited space, yeah, maybe. Support, well, if you have a lot of remote locations, well, at that moment, maybe not every remote location has local IT support, right? Well, that's why it's got to be an easy solution. And definitely downtime. In these days, everyone is working at home. Um, you want that your IT infrastructure remains online. Okay? Well, there you go. This is where SvSan comes in, because if we take a look at the solution itself, well, this is how the solution will help you. Well, it will guarantee you with uptime. You will see that later on at the end of the session in the demo. I shut down a server, well, you will see that the data remains online. Hardware requirements are really lightweight, or really minimal. You will see how light the VSA from StorMagic is, right? Compared to other solutions. Easy to manage with remote and centralized locations. Like I said, a good example is the Home Depot. More than a few thousand sites, all manageable from one central location. And so, if you take a look at the industries where it's deployed, I don't see a specific industry where you cannot deploy it. You can use it everywhere. Okay, really from SMB companies with 5, 10, 20, 50, 5,000 users, I see a use case everywhere. And that is why I am now organizing this webinar. And you will see later on as well that there is much more information that I will share with you to support you to get started with it. So, like I mentioned, so we're talking about StorMagic SvSan. It is lightweight, and so important to know, right? Is how is it deployed? How does it look like? Well, for those who have experience with left hand, aka Store Virtual VSA, well, it runs like a VSA VM, Virtual Storage Appliance VM. You can deploy it from within the vCenter plugin or through an OVA file with ESXi. It runs as well on Hyper-V and on Linux KVM or RHV, Red Hat Virtualization. So it's independent as well of the hypervisor. Okay, so you don't have a vendor lock-in whatsoever if the customer decides to go for one solution today and in 2 years he wants to change. Well, no problem. We are independent of the hypervisor. Now, how does it look like? Well, the solution will be, to recognize it a little bit better, I'm going to put in my spotlight here. There you go. So if we talk about the solution, what are we talking about? Two servers, of course, two HPE servers, right? It can be any brand, any type, ML, DL. FYI, in my environment, I'm running it on a Synergy compute module, right? So as such, the form factor is not an issue. The storage underneath it, also there. Everything is possible. You will see during the presentation there are configurations with midline SAS nearline drives. Most of the time what we're going to do is we're going to put some spinning media in there, SAS drives, even SATA drives if you want, spinning media, and it will be assigned as the capacity tier. Besides that, if you want to win in performance, you want the best performance with lowest latencies, well, we're going to add some SSDs in there. Just like with left-hand store virtual VSA. Now there's a little bit of a difference because the store virtual solution was doing tiering. It was called AO, adaptive optimization, remember? So all the hot data was on the SSDs, all the cold data was on the spinning media. Well, here StorMagic is not using tiering, but it's using caching. So this is really a caching tier, okay? So the data is still on the capacity tier on the spinning media, but all the hot data is stored with a copy on the SSDs to lower the latency. Important to know, it is read and write caching. What does that mean? Well, in my practical example, I'm going to share with you a demo configuration. You will see that I've put in there two SSDs in RAID 1 because there is write cache. And for the write cache, you don't want one single SSD for your write cache data, of course, right? Now, another thing that StorMagic can do is not only SSD for caching, but also memory caching. So within the VSA, the virtual machine that you're going to deploy, yeah, that yellow little square on top of it. So you have your VSA running as a virtual machine on your hypervisor. Well, you can add a little amount of memory to that VSA and use it as memory caching. Okay, because you know that memory caching is really giving you the lowest latencies for your data access. And of course, we're going to deploy two of them. And in between the two, well, we're going to do synchronous mirroring network rate 10. If I want to continue with the comparison with Store Virtual VSA, right? All the data is synchronously written on the two nodes left and right. Okay, so you can see here, I think I mentioned everything. So it is a VSA, we're doing synchronous mirroring, so no async mirroring and so on. So really just two servers with synchronous mirroring of your data to protect your data in a high available way. Yes, there is an option for stretched cluster support. Okay, so also there, if you can guarantee that you have a low latency network in between those two servers, you can put those servers a few hundred meters or even kilometers in between. Yes, there is stretched cluster support. About the networking, don't worry, I will tell you all the details in another slide that is coming soon. Centralized management, one plugin, demo. Yes, there is a witness, the remote shared witness. Of course, we need that because we want to avoid a so-called split brain situation. Store virtual comparison, yes, we had the FOM, the failover manager. Well, here we have also a similar remote shared witness. How does it work? What are the requirements? Don't worry, we will see that all in this presentation. And at the end, I mentioned already a little bit about the performance caching. So StorMagic can use SSDs and system memory to boost your performance. Okay. Good. Now, the hardware, like I told you, I'm going to share a reference configuration with you that me with my colleagues within the HPE team at Tech Data, we created a few configurations for you. But like I said, depending of the capacity that you need, well, most of the time it will be or an ML tower server or a DL360, DL380 server, which will be the most popular modules, of course, to deploy SvSan on it. Now, the types of deployments, well, it is quite flexible. There are some limitations, but it's quite flexible as well. Now, most of the time, the deployment will be what we call hyper-converged. What does that mean? Well, we have two servers with the SvSan VSA running on top of it. Utilizing all the local storage, and on the same servers we're gonna run also the VMs of the customer, of your end user, right? All in one. Now, there's also an option for a hybrid converged deployment. What does that mean? Well, the customer just bought two new DL380 Gen 10 servers. He's going to run all his critical application VMs on there. But yes, it's still possible to use that. Maybe he still has a G6, G7, Gen 8, Gen 9 server. Well, though he can use them as a compute node. Okay, so as you can see, it is perfectly possible to have other servers running a hypervisor connecting through the iSCSI network to your software-defined storage environment. So I think personally, those two solutions will be really popular. Now know that technically it is also popular and possible. I don't see a use case, but it's technically possible to say, hey, I'm gonna put here two servers with not a lot of CPU and memory in there. And I'm going to run just a cheap hypervisor, maybe even a free hypervisor with the SvSan software. With the synchronous mirroring of my data. And now we are in some kind of way creating, remember the good old P4000 storage nodes. So the physical store virtual nodes, right? We're not going to run VMs on there, just it's a storage module. And then we're going to have outside, we're going to have compute modules, we're going to have servers for the compute part of it. And then a last type of deployment that you can do is a so-called 3-node configuration. FYI, it's always 2 nodes because I know with Store Virtual, it was a scale up and a scale out solution where you can say I start with 2 nodes and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16 nodes in a cluster. With StorMagic, this is not the case. It's 2 nodes in a cluster. The maximum is a 3-node configuration. But let it be clear that with a 3-node configuration, that's why I put it here a little bit bigger on the next slide. Let it be clear that with a 3-node configuration, we will need to have 3 volumes it's not mandatory, but in ideal usage for the perfect load balancing, what do we need? We need 3 volumes. And so volume 1 will be synchronously mirrored on node 1 and 2. And then volume 2 will be synchronously mirrored on node 2 and 3. And then volume 3 will be synchronously mirrored on node 3 and 1. But now it's up to you to do the leveling of the size of the volume, because now in theory you could say this is a node of 10 and terabyte 10 and 10 terabyte, and this one only with 5 terabyte. But believe me, it will be really confusing to say I need to have capacity on node 1 and 2 because I need a copy of that. Okay, you don't want unbalanced configurations, but know that it's technically possible to grow your cluster. Now, you'll see in a minute how scalable it is when we're going to talk about the licenses, okay? Because the licenses, it's really easy, but the licenses are capacity based. You'll see there are licenses for 2, 6, and 12 terabyte, and then an unlimited license. So once that you go beyond that 12 terabyte, well, you know as well in the DL380, we can put a plenty of terabytes in there. Well, when you go beyond that 12 terabyte license, well, you just add disks, right? Give the capacity to your SvSan VSA virtual machine, and off you go. The capacity is instantly available for you. Okay. Something about that. I told you that it's a lightweight environment. Well, there you go. While most of the other solutions, they need at least 2, 3, 4 vCPUs. They need a lot of memory to function. I'm thinking about left-hand VSA or Store Virtual VSA. It needed at least 2 vCPUs and 8 gig or even 12 gig of RAM if you wanted to do adaptive optimization. Well, take a look. 1 vCPU and 1 gig of RAM. Okay, that's enough. Now, depending of the capacity, and you'll see that when we're going to talk about the sizing and the designing of a solution, practically you will see that normally 3 gigabyte more than enough. Okay, with 3 gig, you will get all the performance that you need with the caching, with the memory caching, everything you need for the lowest latencies. But 3 GB is really peanuts compared to other solutions on the market. Okay. To give you an idea, also the capacity to run the VSA, it's a half a gig for the boot drive. Yeah, so that's the Linux kernel behind it, together with the StorMagic software. And then there's a 20 GB journal drive. That's it. There's a third data disk. Well, that's the one for your capacity. And that's it. So it's really a lightweight um, VSA that you're going to deploy. And quite important to mention as well is that, yes, since it's 2 servers only, yes, it is supported to have a direct connected network. But also that on the networking, you'll see that in the second slide that will be coming soon. Okay. Really quickly before the networking, one important thing about the deployment and the centralized management. Well, like I told you in the demo, you will see that there's a plugin in vCenter. Okay, so not like with Store Virtual VSA where we had a CMC, centralized management console, which was a Windows-based application running on one of your management PCs or servers. Well, here it's just a plugin inside your vCenter. How to install the plugin, also there. Um, for those who follow my blog, bitcon.be, well, you should have seen at that moment that yesterday I uploaded an how-to article about how to deploy the plugin, how to deploy the VSA, how to create a volume. So also there, we are helping you. Once after this presentation, you say, hey, I want to get started, I want to try it out. Well, know that on my personal blog, all the information is there of where you can find the software, how to download it, and how to install it. Okay, so we're gonna support you completely with this solution to make it a success, of course, right? Now, about the networking, well, I just told you that we have 2 servers with that VSA running on top of it. And so on the networking, it works perfectly on a 1 gigabit network. Okay, so you don't need 10 gigabit. Well, now my advice, however, is if you want to go to the larger configuration, so not the small one, the 2 TB and maybe even the 6 TB, you should be okay. But my opinion is the reference configurations that we created, there is a 10 gigabit NIC in there. So we're using the 4 times 1 gigabit of the server for the management. So at the bottom here, you can see the management and the VM, the production network. But for the storage network, I advise always to use that 10 gigabit interface. It's not that expensive. And like I said, with the direct connectivity, you will see in my reference architecture there are 2 DAC cables, direct attached copper cables, in there. Of course, if the customer says, hey, I want those external compute nodes, remember that hybrid converged deployment? Well, if you want other servers connecting to the iSCSI network, well, at that moment with the storage network here, it's got to be a switch network. If it's a smaller environment with just 2 servers, well, just use 2 DAC cables with 1 or 10 gigabit. You'll see that the 10 gigabit FlexLAM is not that expensive in your server. And I advise it definitely if you go to the larger capacities, and definitely if you want to do the caching or maybe even an all flash configuration. Okay. But also there, the requirements on the storage network is rather low. Just 2 connections back again for high availability. Okay, and there's an automatic link failure and failback that is handled, by the way, by your hypervisor normally. A bit about the witness. So the tiebreaker, also there, really lightweight, completely open. Where do you want to deploy it? You can deploy it as a little Windows service. So if you have somewhere a VM or physical machine running with Windows, well, just install that little service on there. If you say, yeah, I have a Linux VM somewhere, no problem. You can install it as a Linux daemon. You can download it as well as an OVA, as a packaged VM. This is what I have shown or what I have documented in my blog article. So I just deploy from within the plugin. I just select a third hypervisor, and it's a matter of a few minutes, and then that packaged VM is deployed. And there are even existing customers who are deploying it as a Raspbian, so on the Raspberry Pi. Okay, because it's just a witness. As long as those two servers are active, the witness is not necessary. You can reboot it 20 times a day if you want. It's just, it needs to be there at the moment when there is a split brain situation, of course, right? Take a look. 3000 milliseconds of latency. I can install that witness in Australia if I want, at the other side of the world. Okay, how many bandwidth do I need? 9 kilobit. Okay, so also there's no data. Since it's not doing snapshotting and asynchronous replication and all these kind of things, just between those two servers, you don't need a lot of data over there. It's just a witness. Okay, and a very important one, like I mentioned, like that customer like Home Depot, you can have one single witness for thousands of mirrors. So you don't need a farm per cluster or per management group. No, you can have all your customers running two VSAs with StorMagic. And as long as you have what I call a high latency, low bandwidth network, it can be perfectly an IP VPN connection over the internet. You can have that one witness being utilized for all your customers. So also there, really lightweight installation, right? And so like I said, if one server goes down, well, it's the witness at that moment that will give quorum, that will give that majority to the second server. And so at that moment, all your data is available on the second server, and also all your VMs will be running on the second server because, of course, VMware HA will balance all the VMs from one server to the other. Okay? And of course, if the first server comes online, at that moment, what do you need to do, or what does your customer need to do? Nothing. Automatically, the two VSAs, they communicate with each other with that journaling disk. At that moment, he will start to replicate all the data automatically. This is what I will demonstrate in my demo. So you don't have to do anything. So Saturday night, a server goes down, it comes back online again after a few hours, or even Monday morning. All the data is there. You reboot the server, everything is automatically synchronized. Okay, so really cool and light solution. Now, if we take a look at an example configuration, now this is just in general, what do we need? Well, soon I will give you a complete bill of material with part numbers, with reference prices, with everything you want. But this is how it works. Okay, so this is, I just mentioned we have licenses of 2, 6, 12 terabytes, and then an unlimited license. And unlimited really means unlimited. Now, personally, I think that 6 terabyte license will be quite popular. Okay, what do we need for 6 terabyte? Well, we need, in this case, it can be many options, of course, but let's make it simple. 4 times 2 terabyte. I'll use a nearline SAS drive if you want. It can be as well a 2.4 terabyte SAS drive if you want 10K RPM. But 4 times 2 terabyte nearline SAS, RAID 5, and we call it the capacity tier. And at that moment, we're gonna do, of course, to lower the latency to get the best performance, we're gonna add a caching tier. Now, what are we gonna do? Like I mentioned before, there will be 2 drives in RAID 1. Since it is read but also write caching, we're gonna use mixed use SSDs because there will be quite some IO on there. And the best practice is, it's not mandatory, but it's a best practice. try to use 10% of the capacity tier in the SSD tier. So now this is already a bad example because here I only have 480 gig, which will be somewhere around 7% of the caching tier. Don't worry, in the bill of material that I'm going to show you in a minute, you will see that I take into account at least 10% in there. But this is just a guideline. And this is what we're going to do on the two servers, of course, and then we're going to deploy that VSA on top of it. Underlying rate, not important unless that rate 0. Honestly, I don't like this one. So, but rate 1, 5, 6, 10, 50, 60, whatever, something, just see that you have your protection of your data in there. Type of drives, even for the caching tier, if you want NVMe drives, well, no problem. How are you going to present those disks? If you're going to create it as a VMFS data store and then put a VMDK file on it as an IMG image file, or maybe as an RDM, as a raw device mapping, well, perfectly possible. It's all supported just by that hypervisor is the only requirement. Yeah. About the tiering, sorry, tiering, not the tiering, about the caching. Um, that's the only reason why you want or why you need that licensing. Okay, so you will see that there is a standard license. Everything is included to 612 or unlimited terabytes, but you will see that there is that advanced license. But also there, I'll give you all the details about the licensing. But if you want to do the caching, the SSD caching, or the memory caching, well, at that moment, you need that advanced license. But don't worry, I'll give you all the pricing about the licensing differences as well. And that's optional. Of course, if you go for directly an all flash solution, well, at that moment, of course, you don't need that advanced license. You have enough with the standard license. Now, to show you the flexibility of the solution, really the sky is the limit, because this is an example of a 180 terabyte hybrid configuration. So what do we have here? In the DL380, we have plenty of space to put drives in there. So in this configuration, we have a 16 times 14 terabyte large form factor drive in RAID 5 with a hot spare if you want, or in RAID 6, that's up to you. And then here we have, it can be a PCIe accelerator card, yeah, just with enough capacity for the 118 terabytes. So I need at least 18 terabyte of the PCIe accelerator cache. But at that moment, it's perfectly possible in one DL380, and the only thing you need is the unlimited StorMagic license. Okay, and don't worry, pricing is really good. It's really competitive. Okay. Now, before we're going to talk about the pricing, well, really quickly about the right caching. So with that advanced license, so what are we going to do? All the hot data will be cached to avoid that IO blender, of course. And like I said here, a recommended cache capacity is somewhere around 10% of the capacity tier. It's not mandatory, but it's a best practice. And my opinion is, yeah, the more, the better, of course. Okay, now you can use a single SSD. Honestly, I don't like it too much, but use a hardware acceleration, or the software also allows within the software that you have two SSDs without a hardware rate controller. Then within the software you can say you can apply a software rate. So at that moment, it's the StorMagic software that will put the data on the two SSDs back again to make the data, the hot data, high available, of course. So they call it a predictive storage caching. And so the caching is not only on SSD, but also on memory. And so as you can see, you can win a lot of performance improvement just by enabling this. By the way, you can do this per volume. So you can create multiple volumes, one volume with the caching and another volume without the caching. Okay, so you have full control on that. Yes, it's also possible to do pinning. Okay, there are some solutions where you can do volume pinning. Yes, it's perfectly possible to pin a volume completely on SSD as well, as long as you have enough space on your SSD cache layer. Well, at that moment, you can do that, of course. Now, to give you an idea about performance, okay, these are some tests that were done. So with fast underlying storage, that means SAS drives 10K RPM and SSDs with the caching with at least 10%. At that moment, the CPU became the bottleneck because this was a 1 vCPU, 2 gigahertz CPU limitation. And honestly, not that bad. 38,000 IOPS. Yeah, which is not bad. And also the response time was not that bad. Average IO response time 3 milliseconds, right? CPU utilization, as you can see, was the bottleneck. Now, if you would have chosen a higher gigahertz CPU, well, you will see that that same VSA went up from somewhere 20, 30,000 IOPS up to 80,000 IOPS. Okay, but as you can see, the CPU utilization was, of course, higher. Okay, but even then, 80,000 IOPS, I have never seen store virtual VSA deployments with 80,000 IOPS. Okay, so this is really good. Definitely also in the smaller and the medium businesses of this world, right? Now, let's talk practical and then go to the demo. Of course, really quickly, just something about the HPE Complete program, because I'm not sure that everyone is aware about the HPE Complete program. So what is it? It's a partnership. And so as you can see, there are plenty of partners already available today. Okay, and there will be plenty of them that you will recognize. There will be maybe some others that you don't recognize, but what's the advantage? That's the most important to know. What's the advantage for you when you go to your customer or to your favorite distributor, of course? Well, now it's a one-stop shop. You can create one configuration. We can do it together for you, of course. A bill of material with the hardware, HPE, with the software, well, VMware, but you can get the VMware licenses and the Microsoft licenses through HPE as well. Well, now you can have StorMagic software as well through HPE. You request your OPG, your special pricing on the complete bundle, not on all those components, but really on the solution. Really easy, really fast. You get your best price and go sell the solution. So you don't have to go to look for all those partnerships and all the places where you have to find all your hardware and software. No, and believe me, you will see in a minute now that we have all those bill of materials already created for you. All the part numbers with all the hardware, the software, the cables, the support, everything is in there just to make your life easier. And that's the idea about the HP Complete program. Okay, and so this is why I was really interested in StorMagic, since it is in there as well. Now, um, about the products, those part numbers, it's just to give you an idea. I told you there's a 2 terabyte, 6 terabyte, 12 terabyte, and an unlimited terabyte SKU. Like I told you, there is a standard license in 2 terabyte, and there's an advanced license in 2 terabyte, and the same for the 6 terabyte, standard, advanced, the same for the 12 and the unlimited. And I told you the advanced license is if you want to do the caching, right? This is what you need to order. Two of them, because you have two VSAs, so you have to order two of these licenses. Okay? On top of that, you need support. Support 1 to 3 5 years, standard and advanced. It's just the time for response if it's during business hours or also in the weekend, and also with the response time. You will see that there are some differences as well available, but for the standard and the advanced license. How much does it cost? Well, you'll see in the next slide. But these are the licenses. This is just, guys, this is quick specs information, right? Now, what did we do to get an idea? What did we do at the top? This is a complete, fully functional bill of material. The only thing that you need to add is, if you want VMware, we need to add a VMware license. But besides that, it's a complete working set. So what's in there? This is a 6 terabyte hybrid mixed solution. What do we have? We have a DL380 with a CPU in there. We have some memory in there. So by the way, I have two servers with here 8 DIMMs of 32 gig. So that's 256 gig of RAM in there. I have a second power supply. I have that 10 gigabit Ethernet SFP plus Flex LOM in there for the storage network. And then of course it's up to you. What do you want? You want 3 years or 5 years support. Next business day, 24/7. Then best practice, it's not mandatory, but this is how we get started. I plan to use two 300 gigabyte SAS drives in RAID 1 for the operating system, so for VMware and for the StorMagic software. If you want to replace these two 300 gig SAS drives with an SD card, no problem, just do it. You want to use the M2 little SSDs, no problem, but you need boot media. So this is just to give you an idea. By the way, guys, it's not that expensive, right? Um, but you need boot media for the hypervisor. Besides that, you need storage capacity for the capacity tier of SvSan VSA. Well, in this case, since it's 6 terabyte, well, I have here 4 drives in each server, 2.4 terabyte SAS drives in RAID 5. And I'm going to connect them through RDM to my VSA. And of course, I need a caching tier. So there you go, 2 SSDs of 960 gig in RAID 1 for my caching tier. More than enough. I have somewhere around 15% of caching tier. You will get a fantastic performance. Of course, I need 2 DAC cables. So there you go. I have 2 DAC cables for the direct attach connectivity. And I have the StorMagic Advanced software 6 terabyte. And by the way, these prices, these are indicative buying prices, okay? Because you know as well, prices are going up and going down depending of availability. But anyway, this is just a reference price. And so, by the way, list prices. So this is without discounts and OPGs and all the things that you can imagine. 26K, 2 servers, completely usable, 256 gig of RAM. You can run a 16 core CPU. You can run a lot of VMs in here. Yeah, the only thing that you need to do is, yeah, a VMware license and ask an OPG special pricing. There you go. Now, what did we do with my colleagues in the HPE team? Well, we made a comparison with a full flash configuration. Yeah, so we said, you know what? Instead of doing the caching with the advanced license, how much does it cost? A standard license. And so now you can see here as well the list prices of the software. It's not that expensive. And so within the HP Complete program. And so what did we do? We have two 300 gig SAS drives for the hypervisor. But now we added those 1.92 terabyte SATA drives in there. Okay, why? Because if we take a look at the price per gigabyte, the 1.92 terabyte drives are much more interesting compared to the 960 gig drives. Okay. Um, Besides that, everything is the same. Okay, we just pulled out the SAS drives and we put in those SSDs in there. Well, if we take a look, guys, it's the same price. Yeah, it's maybe 1-2% cheaper or more expensive. Now in the 6 terabyte situation, the all flash solution seems to be even just a little bit cheaper. And look, I have here a second configuration with 12 terabyte. Also there, now the 12 terabyte all flash solution is just a little bit more expensive than the hybrid solution. But if you ask my opinion, believe me, I'm gonna go for the all flash solutions, of course. And very important to know, because now you're going to tell me, hey Bart, yeah, but SSD availability. Guys, I checked this morning on InTouch. All these components, yes, even those SSDs, we have them all on stock. They're all available today. Okay? So if you're interested, please contact me or all my colleagues at the HPE team, because all these components are available today on stock, even the SSDs. It was a big challenge to get them, believe me, but yes, we have them. So go for the StorMagic solution, because we have all the components there. You just have to sell it. Okay? Okay, good. We're almost there. I'm going to give you the demo. But before we go there, really quickly, there are plenty of links available. So go on Seismic. I assume that you know Seismic, also on PS Now, Products and Solutions Now. The quick specs are there. The HPE Complete program is there. By the way, you will get a copy of this presentation with all the links available to you. You know where to find me. And of course, there is my blog as well, where all the information is there. If you want to get started, just go to the website of StorMagic. There is trial licenses available by default for 10 days, but once that is deployed, you can extend it up to 30 days. Okay, and then you will be convinced. Okay, and if you see the pricing is really interesting in the HPE Complete program. Okay, that's it. On the presentation side, like I said, yes, you will get a copy of it. Really quickly, I'm gonna check in the Q&A if there are questions that I can answer quickly. How much RAM can be assigned to the SvSan to use RAM cache? By default, 1 gig. Okay, so today it's 1 gig. And by the way, it is read caching. Since we don't have RAID protection on a DIMM, so if a DIMM fails, yeah, so let it be clear. So the memory caching is 1 gig on the VSA. That's why I assigned 3 gigabyte to my VSA. 1 gig for the VSA, 1 gig for the caching, and 1 gig for the memory caching. But it's read caching. The SSD layer, that is read and write caching. Can the witness be dedoubled as well? You can have multiple witnesses, but there will be only one witness per volume. So when you create, this is what I'm going to show in the demo now, but if you create a volume, you can create a volume on one server with no protection. So that's network rate 0. I don't see a use case, but anyway, when you create a volume, you can enable the checkbox mirroring. At that moment, I have a copy of my volume on my 2 nodes. And then you have to assign a witness. Now you can have multiple witnesses, but per volume, there's one witness. Okay? If that one witness is broken, oh, I lost it, my Raspberry Pi died. Okay, just get a new Raspberry Pi or deploy that VM. It's just an IP address, and then per volume, you can change that witness. It's per volume. It's not per cluster. It's not per management group. It's per volume where you enable the mirroring. Okay, good question. Witness needs layer 2 access to the 2 servers. Yes, but the witness can be on a management network, so it doesn't have to be on that 2 times 10 gigabit direct attach, remember? No, the witness is on the management network. So it can be really in Australia behind an IP VPN connection over the internet. Yeah, because it's going over that 1 gigabit management network. Is caching on RAM possible? So yes, I answered that. Yes, 1 gigabit of read cache on the memory. Did the performance benchmark use any memory caching or only the SSD caching? It was 1 gig of memory caching and then all the rest SSD caching, but there was no cheating whatsoever. By the way, the performance numbers are described in a performance benchmark white paper from StorMagic themselves. So this is an official document, by the way. Yeah. Is only local storage supported, or could you also add storage from an instance, another SAN or iSCSI storage? Technically, yes, you can do it. It can be anywhere. It can be even on 2 MSA. Hey, that's a good idea. Create a synchronous mirror between 2 MSAs. Technically, yes, you can do that as long as honestly, my connection from my server to my MSA, if that is high available. Because you just have to look for single point of failures. But technically, yes, good idea. Support is mandatory. Yes, support is mandatory. Why? For software upgrades. Okay, so you will see today SvSan version 6.2. So it's not a new product that exists already quite some time. And there are updates. Okay, also on the Linux, there is Linux underneath it. You want support on that Linux underneath it as well. I must admit, I downloaded the trial software. I installed it and I found some limitations, not limitation on StorMagic, but specific on my environment. I had a vCenter 6.7 with servers with 6.5 and some other stuff on Synergy as well. It's a demo environment, right? Well, I contacted that support team even with trial licenses. So I didn't pay anything, right? And now NFR licenses. So I still didn't pay anything for it. But the support was fantastic. Those guys were really fantastic. They helped me. They took over my screen. They were troubleshooting, even with the trial license. So, and even without a support license, even paid for it. Yeah. So I'm really impressed with their support team. Okay. The capacity license, is that usable after RAID or the raw disk? No, usable, what you assign to the volumes to the hypervisor. Okay, so it's really the storage, because now in my case, I have RDMs. Now with RDMs, raw device mapping, I have, I think, 3 drives in RAID 5 from my Synergy. So it's somewhere around, I think it's 4.8 or 5.1 terabyte. It's what you assign indeed to that VSA. And the 4 licenses for resellers, you have to contact HPE or directly StorMagic, but I got them. So yes, they are available. Okay. Upgrade keys available from 6 to 12. This is a good question. I have to validate this. I assume that yes, it is available. It's only I didn't see the SKUs yet. That's why I want to check it out. So yes, I will contact you. I assume that they are available. Yes, I just need to be 100% sure. Can you use VMware fault tolerance as well? It's completely independent of VMware FT. You can use VMware FT, but not for the VSAs. Okay, so the VSA itself from StorMagic, no FT on there, because it's just mirroring your data anyway. So I don't see a use why you want to do that. Does it support both VMware and Hyper-V and Linux KVM and Red Hat virtualization? Yes, independent of the hypervisor. Yes. 3 or 4 unit fully synced setup possible network rate 1/3. Official answer, no. I know that there is, with some scripting, you can go to network rate .1, definitely not network rate +2, with 4 units for all data on all 4 nodes. Forget it, you don't want that. If you want that high availability, call me. We will talk about other solutions like Nimble and so on. And there are some other solutions if you really want that high availability. Why not? Because with 4 synchronous copies, you need an acknowledgement of your 4 servers at the same time. The network will be the performance bottleneck. Okay, is a one node setup supported? Yes, of course. You only cannot do mirroring, so it's better to use local storage. But technically, yes, of course, it is possible. You can have, by the way, volumes with mirroring, and you can have another volume here without mirroring. A not so important volume without mirroring here. Yes, it's perfectly possible. The only thing is that you're using capacity here that you don't use there, of course. Yeah. What about Veeam integration? No, I just said it's a VSA, lightweight, synchronous mirroring. All the other stuff that I'm telling you about, also with SimpliVity and Nimble with deduplication and compression and backup and snapshots, no. So, unlike with VSA, by the way, on my blog, I made a little comparison between left-hand VSA and StorMagic. Well, Store Virtual left-hand VSA does snapshotting with indeed Veeam integration. StorMagic doesn't do snapshotting. Okay, it's just synchronous mirroring. That's it. So yes, you can run Veeam in there, but there's no snapshotting integration whatsoever. Okay. Is there an upgrade SKU from VSA? I assume that you mean the left-hand VSA. No, because left-hand is something and StorMagic is something else. So there are no upgrades whatsoever. It's two completely different products, and I assume that it will never get there. Of course, you can negotiate with HPE. Hey, Mr. HPE, I have an existing left-hand customer and I want to replace it with StorMagic. Give me your best price. Of course, you can do that through the OPG channel, through special pricing, but there are no upgrade SKUs whatsoever. Okay, so there you go. In your demo bomb, you sometimes use the standard license and sometimes the advanced license. Yes, that's a good question. By the way, this is the last one, and then I'm gonna give my demo. But if you take a good look here, the 6 TB full flash, since I only have one capacity tier, which is SSD, well, at that moment, I can use the cheaper standard license. So that's up to you, or you're going to give a little bit more to software licensing, or you're going to give a little bit more money to SSDs. Yeah, the price is the same. Only you're going to give a little bit more to hardware or software, but that's, I'm not telling you that you have to go all flash or mixed whatsoever. It's just there are some people that think that an all flash solution is much more expensive. Well, apparently not, or at least not with StorMagic on two DL380s with local SSDs in there. Okay, that's the only thing that I want to show you. Yeah. But don't worry, you will get fantastic performance in both. Now, the only thing is with all flash solution, I suggest anyway to go to 10 gigabit network, low latency for sure. Okay, good. Demo. Otherwise, if there are other Q&A questions, don't worry, I will stay online after the demo to answer them, and otherwise I will contact you anyway, or you can contact me for further questions, of course. But very good questions already. Good. For the demo, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna connect to my yep, it's still active. I don't have to log on again to my vCenter environment. So in my home lab, in my data center, in my garage, I have 2 + 1 servers. So I have here at the left, I have a data center with a cluster. I don't see any messages popping up that no one can see it, so I assume that you can see this, yes. So I have ESX1 and ESX2, which are two Synergy blade servers. And then I have ESX11, which is an ML110 that I have here inside my house as the tiebreaker, as my disaster recovery one little tiny server, right? So what did I do? I am running now here SM VSA1. Yeah, I had to change a little bit the naming convention because as you can see underneath, I also have a store virtual VSA1 and have a store virtual VSA2 on my ESX1 and ESX2. So yes, I can confirm already, yeah, they can run in parallel on the same server. Because as you can see here, if I click on my ESX1, so you will see that there is indeed the StorMagic VSA1 and the Store Virtual VSA1 at the same time on that server. And I assigned through Synergy, I have that storage module, and so I assigned a certain amount of capacity to my Store Virtual VSA and now to my StorMagic VSA. Okay, so I have a StorMagic VSA1 on server 1, StorMagic VSA on server 2, and like I said before, I have that StorMagic Witness running on my ESX11. So I deployed it as a VM, yeah. But like I said, you can run it on any Linux, on any Windows, even on a Raspberry Pi as a witness. Okay, so now what can I see in here? So I told you there is a plugin, and if you go to bitcon.be to my blog and you go to the how to section, well, at that moment, you will see here StorMagic SvSan, deploy StorMagic SvSan. And so in this article, you will get all the details with all the 38 screenshots of how to. This is what I was doing yesterday for you guys. I wanted to be sure that it was online. So all the screenshots are there of how to deploy this plugin. Now, where can you find the plugin? You go to your data center and you go to configure. And then here, and this is the only location where you can find the StorMagic plugin. There you go. That's it. Getting started. And so these are the 4 steps that I have completely documented on my blog. By the way, you don't have to use my blog. There is fantastic PDF available. When you go to the StorMagic website, when you download the software, of course, there is a really good deployment guide available as well. It's just my blog is accessible as well for you in an easy way. Now, what you need to do, we're going to deploy a VSA onto host 1. You will see it's just asking you for 10 steps, right? Just fill in a name, an IP address, where you're going to deploy it, what's your storage, what's your caching, what's your networking, a license, and there you go. Yeah. You can deploy the 2 VSAs at the same time on those 2 servers. You just have to enter multiple IP addresses. And you can deploy the VSA witness as a VM, unless you're using the Raspberry Pi and the Linux and the Windows version. Once you have done this, you create a data store, right? That's it. It's that easy. Now, what else can we see here? Manage VSAs. I see my VSA 1, and luckily for me, it is normal. And SMVSA 2 is also normal. And so to manage it, because the only thing that I still can do here is create volumes, manage storage. So here I have 1 volume and I create new volumes. Now all the other management, all the troubleshooting and so on, well, you will see that every VSA has its own management URL. So here stops the centralized management part, because you will see now that every VSA has its own passwords, of course. There you go. And so you will see that every VSA has its own management interface. Now in the daily operations, you don't have to go here, but here you can create or update the networking configuration, the iSCSI. You can add iSCSI initiators. You can configure the storage pools and so on. But normally this is a configure once, don't touch anymore afterwards solution, right? You see, it's really basic. All the stuff that you're gonna do is here, and the whole idea is that everything is normal here, of course. Now, really quickly, I told you manage storage. So here I have my volume, and what I want to highlight here is, because now I'm gonna do the demo, I'm gonna generate a failure. So here you can see that I don't have a direct attached network. I have a switch network between my 2 servers, and that's why I have 2 VSAs, right, with 2 servers. And so that means that in total I have, since it's a switch network with that cross and that straight cable, I have 8 pods, every volume to each server. So you will see at the bottom that I have 8 pods. Okay. Why is this important? Well, what am I going to do is take a look. I connect to my SMVSA1, StorMagic VSA1. And what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to generate a failure, right? There you go. Power off. I don't shut down my server because I have plenty of VMs running on there, but this is the same result. The server is not available anymore. Well, now, in this situation, you don't have to worry, because if I go to take a look now to my plugin and I go to manage VSAs, there you go. VSA 1 is powered off. And VSA 2 is now in a warning state. Why? Because in a warning state, yeah, I have a volume on it in a mirroring configuration, but he cannot mirror. So now on the local journaling drive, he's keeping all those little changes that I'm making now because on my volume there is a VM running. So now he's holding all those changes until VSA comes one back online again. And so now if I go to my managed storage, you will see as well that my volume, that there are only 4 pods active out of 8, because as you can see, VSA2 is active, but VSA1 is not there anymore. There are 4 dead pods. But now my VM is still running on there, right? Um, because the data volume, well, take a look here. I can go perfectly here to my SM StorMagic volume 1. And if you take a look at the files, well, you will see that there you go. It's my virtual service processor from my TripR. There you go. All my data is available, right? And so now, what do we need to do? Of course, my server is online back again. So automatically I configured that StorMagic VSA is in an automatic startup configuration. So now you will see that this VSA is booting up again. So that tiny little Linux instance is booting up now. And so if I go back now to my plugin here, so you will see now that yeah, it will take some time. It takes around 1 minute and a half. So you will see that, but it goes really quickly. But at the end, he will tell here that VSA1 is online again. And then when I go to manage storage, at that moment, you will see that automatically here where you have that warning state, he will tell you that he is synchronizing. And just a few seconds afterwards, depending on how many changes that you have, of course, you will see that the data is all synchronized again. Now, this is just a refresh that I need to do in my vCenter, but as soon as the VSA1 comes online, but as you can see here on the console, the Linux instance is running. So now I just have to do a refresh. This is always fun with live demos, of course, but there you go. My VSA1 and VSA2 is normal, and my storage volume 1 now should be as well. There you go. I have 8 pods available back again to a normal state. What did I have to do? Nothing. It happens automatically. Okay, guys? Well, this is it for the demo. There's nothing more to show than the plugin with a simulation of a failure and everything comes online again. How to install, how to configure it? Well, you can find it or in the deployment guide delivered by StorMagic, or you can see all the screenshots on my blog. If you want a more deep dive demo of all this, all the things that you can do in here, now I just have to do a refresh here because this is a web browser thingy because there you go, everything is online again because I rebooted this VSA. If you want a more in-depth demo or troubleshooting experience with all this, yeah, of course, feel free to contact me because I see that we're already a few minutes after time. I'm really sorry for that. But in the name of the complete HPE team at Tech Data, there's, by the way, the phone number, the email address. Thank you very much. If there are more questions, I will stay here online and answer the questions in the Q&A. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time. And we'll see each other back again, definitely in a virtual or maybe one time back again physical event. Thank you very much for your time, for being here, and have a nice afternoon.